Good afternoon and welcome to the Friday Frontliner. My name is Ellen Comisar and I'm delighted to be here with our guest, who is also a frequent Blazer for those of you in Blaze Nation, Hank Phillippi Ryan, who is out with this wonderful book, All This Could Be Yours, which came out earlier this month. And the reason I get to do this interview, most of you see me on Debut Spotlight, is because this book is about a debut author. And even though Hank has published many, many books, and we'll talk about all that, she is stepping back into the world of a debut author on her very first book tour. So welcome, Hank, and nice to see you on the other side of the interview seat.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's really strange to be on this side of the microphone, I have to say. It was all I could do not to welcome everyone today, but I'm really delighted to be here. I've been on book tour for the past 2-3 weeks, and All This Could Be Yours became an instant USA Today bestseller. So I am still floating about that.
That's terrific. And feel free, if you have questions you'd like to ask me or yourself as a host, feel free. So I will start, however. As I said, this book is out from Minotaur Books. It came out September 9th, and it has gotten some wonderful reviews. People magazine called it a nail-biting thriller, and Crime Reads called you, Hank, a master of suspense, which Literary Journal also said in a starred review that this could be your best book to date, which is really saying something. You also had lots of praise from other writers, some of whom have been guests on Crime Time. Cheryl LaPena called it clever, thrilling, and impossible to put down. Nita Prose says the book is a propulsive page turner. And Ashley Elston called it a wildly entertaining cat and mouse thriller. El Casamano said that the book is about what happens when the fine lines between fiction and reality blur under the searing pressure of fame, fans, and family. This is called a delightful, suspenseful book by Jean Kwok, and Booklist talks about the anxiety of our protagonist, which builds chapter by chapter, affecting both the protagonist and the reader alike. It is gripping, it is glamorous. It's a be careful what you wish for tale that delivers on all of its promises. BookTrib says it reads like Harlan Coben or Sandra Brown writing at their level best, as Hank stakes her claim to the ground roamed by the likes of her literary doppelganger. And we will talk about that.
Well, let's just now. I think that's great.
Okay, we're done.
We're done.
We have a little more to do. So first of all, let me just welcome Blaze Nation. We love when you join us for these shows. So if you've been here before, welcome back. If you are new to the Blaze, welcome for the first time. I think you'll see what we do and hopefully come back for more. We are all over social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, also known as X. We're having a little trouble in that realm, but if you search for A Mighty Blaze on that platform, you will find all of our tweets and information about our shows and other things about the literary world. And of course, you can always find us on our website, www.amightyblaze.com, where you can sign up for our newsletter and you will find information about all of our shows, and you'll be able to see links to all of our archive on YouTube. So there's a lot of great interviews you can check out, past and future, and we hope you will do that. So before we get further into our discussion, I would love to just give you Hank's bio. Many of you know her already from Crime Time, but she is an instant USA Today best-selling author who has won 5 Agatha Awards, 5 Anthony Awards, the Daphne, the McCavity, and the Mary Higgins Clark Awards. She's an on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV. She has won 37 Emmy Awards and many more journalism awards, too many to count. She's a past president of the national organization Sisters in Crime. She's a founder of Mystery Writers of America University and a board member of the International Thriller Writers. And she lives in Boston. I don't know when you have time to write. How does that work for you?
It's a joy, I have to tell you. We all juggle so much in our lives. don't we? And a long time ago, when I was writing my first book, I answered that very question by calling my mom. I called my mom, as we all do if we're lucky. And I said, my life is so busy and my life is so full, but I'm writing this book, my very first book, and I think people will like it. But I just don't know if I can finish it. I just don't know if I can manage everything to finish it. And my mom paused and she says, well, dear, you will if you want to. And I think that's the answer that we can all give, is that we all do everything that we want to. We can make things happen if we want to. It's just a question of our determination or our obsession or our passion or our joy in doing something that we really cannot wait to do. So I love that juggle. I love getting things done. I'm pretty organized, but I realized that it was my goal, my job, that no one was going to call me and say, how are you doing on that book, sister? If I wanted to do it, I would do it. And that became my first novel, and my life changed as a result.
Well, speaking of changing lives, our protagonist, Tessa Calloway, who is the subject of All This Could Be Yours, is a character who changes her own life and decides, corporate America be damned, I'm getting out of this rat race and I am going to write a book. And tell us a little bit about what happens after that.
Well, I think it's interesting because Tessa Calloway, the main character of this book, is a person very like many of us. She's smart. She knows her own mind. She's a good person. She's a wife. She's a mom. She has a job. And one day she just realizes that she's just had it with the corporate world. This is like page 1, so no spoilers. And live on Instagram, she just quits her job. She just says, I've had enough with being invisible. I've had enough with being ignored. I've had enough with being the one that has the good ideas and then somebody else takes credit for it. I'm done with this. And moreover, she realizes that, and we've all thought this, she realizes that she has one life and that she may not be living it to the fullest. So she says, I'm going to follow my dreams. And I'm going to live my one life to the greatest extent that I possibly can. And I'm going to write a novel. So she walks out of her job. Luckily, her husband at this point has a job. And she is allowed to stay home with her 2 darling kids and write her book. And that book, as the story begins on chapter 1, that book is a surprise, fabulous, blockbuster bestseller. And she is sent on a gorgeous, fabulous, glamorous, read exhausting nationwide book tour where she's met with, adoring fans and signing lines and booksellers who love her and effusive librarians. And it's really a dream come true for her. But exactly as you said, Ellen, it's a be careful what you wish for thriller. Because Tessa begins to realize very early on that she's not alone on this book tour, that she has a stalker or even stalkers, someone or someones who are trying not only to ruin her new career as an author, but destroy the family that she's had to leave back home. So what begins as a glamorous, fabulous nationwide book tour turns into a terrifying, dangerous, deadly cross-country cat and mouse chase with the author running for her life. And that is All This Could Be Yours. All this could be yours, the joy and the glory and the success and the happiness and the dreams come true, or all this could be yours, a nightmare that you never could have imagined.
Now, one of the things about Tessa, and you write a lot about, what it's like to be a writer and what a novel has to do. And I actually captured a bunch of those as I was reading it, is that she is a person who looks at the world through a very creative, imaginative lens. So everything she sees, separate from what she's been seeing on book tour, but everything she sees, she sort of imagines what's that backstory. And so part of the tension in this book is how much of this is really nefarious, things that are happening, and how much of it is this sort of wild, paranoid, creative mind that sort of reels her in. I mean, once she starts down that path, things are happening, but she sort of dives into the rabbit hole head first and then can't get out of her head as she's going.
The problem is, and the situation is, and the reality is that Tessa has a secret. She has a pretty deep, dark secret, and she fears that what's happening, what's coloring her decision-making process and what's coloring her thought process is that she figures this is really her fault, that all these things that are happening to her, and they clearly are happening to her, the result of what really felt like a deal with the devil, a Faustian bargain that she made some years ago. And she is convinced that this is the devil coming due. This is the bargain coming due, that there is the devil to pay now, and that there is someone or someone's out there who knows her secret, who knows this thing that she's trying to hide, that if anybody finds out about it, it'll crash her career, it'll crash her life, it'll crash everything that she ever loved. So the stakes are supremely high for her. Tessa is not someone who's flighty and super imaginative and looking for problems in places they don't exist, because she has caused the problem. She knows she has caused this problem, and she has spent the past 20 years trying to hide it. And now someone else, it is very clear, someone else knows about it. So what seem like things that may be just no problem for the rest of us, finding a locket in a drawer or having a fire alarm or seeing someone who's sitting next to her on an airplane, that we would think would be coincidence. Tessa knows it isn't coincidence, and she is right. So this is not paranoia. This is knowledge of her past that no one else knows.
Yeah, it sort of creeps up on her. Like, I think at first she's like, oh, we don't know what this is, when she finds the locket, which is early in the book. But then as things happen, it sort of escalates, and it's like, okay, now something's really happening. And now she knows that someone's following her, or more than one person. It's hard to tell. So one of the things that you learn through this book is sort of this dynamic, the behind the scenes of the book tour, the being met at an airplane, being taken to the hotel, having a very short amount of time to change, getting to the bookstore, signing all the books. And I'm wondering how much of what you wrote is either reminiscent of early book tours you've been on, like sort of that debut sensation of the book tour. She's sort of wowed by it at first. Is that sort of something you still feel after, 16, 17 books?
That's such an interesting and very sweet question, Ellen. Absolutely. I mean, I remember completely my first book tour, and I was floating on absolute air of joy. But very quickly you realize that even though, and I want to make it very, very clear, book tour is wonderful. It's fantastic. I embrace the whole thing, to meet readers and to meet booksellers and to meet librarians and to be able to share a book that I've worked on for a year and have people love it and have people ask me questions about it that are interested in it. That's can't be better than that. But at some point, you're just starving and you're exhausted. And I have, I've just come home for 2.5 weeks on book tour. And I have to tell you, I saw too many sunrises. Like, there was dawn too many times. And you have to get up at 4:00 in the morning to get to the airport, to get to the airplane, to get to your next event. And all you see is hotel, Uber, airport, airplane, Uber, hotel, bookstore, pillow, 4:00 in the morning, alarm. Now, this is not in the nature of a complaint in any way. It's just what you have to do. I was in 13 different cities, 12 different cities in 13 different days and 11 different hotels. And there is no way that that's normal for a person. And what fuels me, and I wonder if it fuels the other authors who are here this afternoon, what fuels me is that it's the joy of it, the opportunity of it, the challenge of it. I learned to, I've changed clothes so many times in bathrooms of bookstores where the floors are clammy and you have to somehow get yourself fluffed up and looking nice and being enthusiastic. And I've had days when I've had 4 hours of sleep and you still have to be kind of fabulous. And, I wouldn't trade it for anything. But when in all this could be yours, for instance, Tessa on book tour is a novice at this. Her husband and family are at home. She's trying to be a wife and a mom via FaceTime and Zoom, and her husband's only letting her see what he wants her to see on the video. She is the sole breadwinner of the family. If she doesn't sell books, then their mortgage doesn't get paid, and the publisher is unhappy, and the bookstores go out of business. So her responsibilities are not only to herself, but to a lot of people. So this tension, this stakes, I mean, if you fail, you fail, and you're not going to get another chance. If you make a mistake, you're doomed. If something goes wrong at every single turn of every single minute of every single day, absolutely everything can go wrong.
Well, our friend Margaret asked, what is your best airport experience? But I'll piggyback on that and have you answer not only what is your best, but what was your worst book tour experience in an airport?
The worst book tour experience in an airport. The universe, I know this is such a revelation to you all, but the universe is unpredictable. And the universe does not care if if your plane is 20 minutes late, you're going to miss the connection in Des Moines to get to Cedar Rapids, and you're not going to get to your event. And if the weather decides to have a thunderstorm, you're in trouble about that. If the airline is overbooked, if the airline, there's just every minute of every day, there's no room and there's no water and, there's no food and the planes are late. And I don't, Jenna's saying changing clothes in the bathrooms and green rooms and kitchens all the time. And I've learned to carry everything. I do not check a suitcase. I went on tour for 13 days with a carry-on bag, just overhead compartment. If it doesn't fit in that bag, it doesn't go. And so you learn to take almonds, you learn to have water, you learn to make sure that you absolutely get enough sleep. I can't tell you how many times, and every authors will laugh, I can't tell you how many times I've bought a turkey sandwich in the airport and taken it in the Uber back to the hotel because I know I'm going to get back from my event after any restaurant in the vicinity is closed. And that turkey sandwich is just like heavenly because that's all the food there is. So again, I don't want to make this sound like one bit of complaint. It is great. But when you're a novice author, like Tessa Calloway, and you have not learned the joy of saving hotel shower caps and how gorgeous it is when you finally get a hotel that has a bathrobe. So you don't have to drape yourself in bath towels because it's so freezing in the hotel room. All those kinds of things I have learned over all these years, but Tessa doesn't know. I mean, think about it. We go everywhere we go as authors. Almost everyone in the room is a stranger. So you all know that I'm going to be at the Swamp Fox bookstore in Cedar Rapids at 7:00 on Tuesday. And that's because my schedule is public. That's because I want you to know where I'm going to be. But on the other hand, if you're unhappy with me or have some nefarious purposes with me, you know where I am. And that vulnerability is absolutely a reality.
The other thing you speak about at length, or not so much at length, but it stuck with me in All This Could Be Yours, was this idea of parasocial relationships. That not only do people who meet you on social media or meet any author, or in this case, who meet Tessa, somehow believe they have a real relationship. And they often believe or picture the author as the protagonist and merge those lifestyles together and somehow believe.
How many times have we all asked authors, how much of your protagonist is you? And we think all of it and all of it and none of it. But of course, as Tessa says, as Tessa's agent says, every female author who has a female main character, every single reader is going to picture that author as the main character. And how many times in parasocial relationships, it's that same thing with, look at all the people in the comments. It's marvelous. I'm thrilled that everyone is there. I've made so many real friends via Instagram and Facebook and via the Mighty Blaze. Absolutely. And I cherish those people when I see them on tour. But we all know authors who travel with bodyguards. When the enthusiasm just goes a little too far, that's why they're called fans, because it comes from fanatic. And when that gets a little too far, people can read your book and feel so close to it and think, oh, she understands me so completely. She's just like me. She must be my friend. She is my friend. She owes me something. And that can be very scary. The sort of fancier and bigger that you get in book world, fans, I mean, you all know this, fans can be a situation that writers have to be insulated from. When I don't want to be insulated. I love to talk with everybody.
Balance.
Out in the world, but you're so very right. It's a balance. It's a balance. And that's what Tessa is learning in this book as well. She wears periwinkle earrings. All of her readers wear periwinkle earrings. Oh,
I put some on for you.
Thank you. See, that's wonderful. But then if my whole audience had periwinkle earrings, would that be good?
That would be creepy.
Also learns that the periwinkle earrings are a sign of friendship, that she doesn't have to be afraid of someone who has the Tessa sort of stamp of approval. So it's a scary, weird world that she's going into, because we as authors, we rely on readers. We embrace readers. We rely on bookstores. We rely on booksellers. We embrace that all. We can't see Laurel Hamilton drives with, says Melanie, travels with the bodyguard. Yeah, because it's just a certain level of fame that Tessa has in the book. And as a debut author, there's no way she can be used to that. So she is fighting, as you say, exactly. She's learning about those battles and learning about those struggles one step at a time. And she doesn't quite know what's normal. Not to mention that she's starving and exhausted all the time. So she's out of equilibrium in the first place.
As somebody who's run festivals and been the person who's tried to hustle along the reader at the signing table, who just wants to dominate the book signer and hold up the line and invest and download their entire story to this author who just wants to finish signing books and get home.
Yes,
we've all seen that.
Yes, I so agree with you, and I know that you've lived that, and it's such a juggle again, because as an author, I want to hear your story. I want to hear absolutely everything about you. I cannot wait to hear this. But I'm trying to juggle my joy at seeing you with the knowledge that there are however many people in line who are looking at their watches saying, why is she taking so long with that person? So every single step you take is fraught with possibilities of a problem. And Tessa gets that full bore.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. You are an Emmy Award-winning investigative on-air journalist, and as such are dealing with facts and research and digging, finding out facts and keeping them all quiet. How difficult was it initially, or perhaps still, to switch hats and go from I'm sticking to all the facts and only the facts and crafting a story out of what is true, what I know to be true, versus I'm writing a narrative and I can grab anything I want that's out there as long as it makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, that is such a moment. That is such a pivot. That was such a pivotal moment for me, because I started writing fiction after having been a reporter for 30 some years. And every day as a reporter for 30 some years, the facts were the facts. The dialogue was what people really said to me. The settings were where the event really took place. And there were documents and clues and leads and paperwork and public records and all those kinds of things that were absolutely factual. And my job, my beloved job as a reporter, is to take all those facts and create a story that's true and believable and balanced and interesting and educational and enlightening and new. All of that. And when I started writing fiction, actually, my first book, I was sitting right here at this very desk, looking out this very bay window at this very sugar maple tree, which is very much bigger now than it was at the time. And I wondered very specifically whether I could make stuff up, because I realized that my story was fiction. My story idea is fictional. My world is fictional. It's a real feeling fictional world. And I wondered if my imagination would provide me something wholly new, but wholly believable. And I'll tell you the very moment that it happened. I remember the moment that I clicked over into fiction was that my first book was about, and I scraped the bottom for this, a television reporter in Boston who's worried that she's getting too old for TV. And
where did that idea come from?
Scraping the bottom. And she wonders what happens when if you're married to your job in television and the camera doesn't love you anymore. That was my main character, Charlotte McNally. So I'm writing the book and I'm thinking, this is going to be good. You know, I could probably do this. Maybe I could do this. I'm very excited about this. And I got to the point where Charlie had to drive somewhere. And I thought, okay, I hate to drive. So that means Charlie hates to drive. And that's going to be a problem for this book because she really needs to drive. And if I have her not like to drive, that's going to make her be sort of out of control and unself-confident. That's not liking to drive is not a trait that I want her to have. And Laura, yes, you should get some periwinkle earrings. Absolutely. So I can't wait to see you in your periwinkle. So I thought, wait a minute. I hate to drive, but I'm a real person. Charlie is a fictional character, and Charlie loves to drive. She loves to drive. She's a good driver. She's a confident driver. She has a cool car. Not only does she love to drive, she has a cool car. And I thought, I could just make this up. And I know that sounds like such a silly little, tiny little moment, but that was the moment when I realized my book has to feel true, but it doesn't have to be true. And that was quite educational for me.
But you also write, and one of the things I love about books that are about writers or books that are about books is the degree to which the actual author, in this case, Phillippi Ryan, author of All This Could Be Yours, gives you hints about writing and the writing life, which on the one hand feeds into this, oh, the protagonist is the author in disguise, or how much of the protagonist is true to the author, and where's the fiction begin. But you write, for example, that, I've just lost my place, that to the detail of setting, you only need like 3 little facts to ground it in reality. And I remember reading about Tessa's going to a library and you make reference to the big bunny rabbit outside. And I'm like, that's fiction. Until I Googled it. And of course, there's a big bunny in these. Is Philadelphia or?
Boyne Library.
Yes, Boyne Library, right. So when you're going around either on book tour, are you like taking note of all these like little quirky things that happen in different places?
No,
Do you research it as you need it?
Let's see, how am I going to put this? So the story evolves the way the story has to evolve. And All This Could Be Yours takes place only in, as I said, only in airports, airplanes, hotels, libraries, and bookstores and
right.
Uber. And it's a book tour. So the book tour had to make sense geographically.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to sort of plan out a way for Tessa to actually be able to get from place to place for an event every day. And I wanted to take her farther away from her family. So I wanted to take her to California so she'd be 3 time zones away to make it even be more in a space of disequilibrium. So I am writing what feels like a real author on real book tour doing what they would really do. So what the book needs me to provide as an author, as an author of fiction, is what would be the reality of the place that Tessa is going to. How do bookstores work? How do libraries work? How do hotels work? How do hotel rooms work? How do hotel keys not work? So it's interesting because you were talking about the comparison between writing investigative reporting and crime fiction, is that in crime fiction, I'm investigating the facts. But in investigative reporting, I'm investigating the facts. But in crime fiction, I'm just investigating my own imagination. I'm just researching my own imagination and my own experience and my own knowledge and my own sort of hopes and dreams. And I make it be real. So I'm sort of seeing the movie in my mind of what's happening. And then I just sort of transcribe that. So when Tessa had to go to Des Moines, it had to be Des Moines because that made sense geographically. So then I thought, I wonder what Des Moines looks like. So then I look up Des Moines, and then I thought, look at that library in Des Moines. It's a beautiful copper box of a library that has Miffy, the sad bunny, Miffy, as a statue outside. And I thought, thank you, gods of writing, because this is a great setting. And in 2 weeks, I'll be in Des Moines at that very library. Is that not the funniest thing?
We expect to see Instagram photos of you there.
I can't wait. I totally can't wait. And so the whole thing, this book is so super meta and so super personal. Think about it. I'm an author on book tour with a book called All This Could Be Yours, which is about an author on book tour with a book called All This Could Be Yours. It can't get any more meta than that. No. So I just was going for supreme realism, but also a revelation of the power of storytelling and the remarkable life that an author gets to lead, not only in creating something out of nothing, creating a story out of nothing but their own imagination, but then being able to be on the road and sharing that. But basically, in this case, I took the joy of writing and the joy of storytelling and the wonder of our writing community and just weaponized the whole book tour thing. It's just book tour from hell at this point. And I've had a lot of author friends say that they were glad that they read the book when they got home. It just creeped them out too much to read it on the road.
I can imagine. Now, you said that you sort of have that movie vision of the book, and there's a lot of scenes where you can envision it totally beautifully. Is there any thought that this becomes a movie, or that any of your other books, that you go sort of from on-air screen personality to written world to in-person presenter?
Yeah, I know.
Circles back to movie or
screen? Hollywood is looking. I mean, that would be super double, triple backflip meta, right? That'd be pretty
totally.
But people are looking at it in Hollywood. I have a couple of agents. It's all this. But you know what? Honestly, Ellen, I just don't think about it. This is, talk about be careful what you wish for. Sure. And my books are books. My books are designed to be books. And I'm telling you, if the movie in your mind starts when you read my books, that's really the movie. That's really the movie that I care about. The real movies are like somebody else's world, somebody else's life, somebody else's decision. I'm just going to write the best book I can write. I can write the best book I can write. And that's what my goal is.
That's terrific. Well, if you're just joining us, you've missed a great conversation so far, but we're not done yet. So if you have questions, please pop them in the chat and we will be getting to them momentarily. We are talking with Phillippi Ryan. All This Could Be Yours, out this month.
Yeah, USA Today bestseller.
USA Today instant bestseller. And you have 2 of these right now on that list. Is that true?
Yeah, that was so interesting. I woke up, you know how you find out about the USA Today bestseller list is it comes out at 6 a.m.
Wow.
So on Wednesday morning. So the night before I was pretending that I'd forgotten about it. But I hadn't. And I woke up at like midnight, at 1, at 2, at 3, just thinking, is it 6 o'clock yet? And then about 6:05, my email pinged and there it was. And it was not only All This Could Be Yours on the list at number 48, which is pretty great, but my book, One Wrong Word, the previous book, had also made the list. So 2 books on the bestseller list on the same week was pretty fantastic. I didn't need any sleep after that. I hardly needed an airplane. I was just flying on my own steam to the next event. I was so happy and still am.
I'm sure. You write about Tessa gets told and learns that being on a book tour as an author is sort of like being a traveling salesman. Your family's back home, you have something to sell. People are relying on the sale, not just you as the author, but the whole industry related people. And we know that tours changed drastically during COVID, which is when the Blaze got its start. In your experience, how has it changed? What's changed either about the audiences or your experience? I mean, clearly people now through social media know you in ways they never knew you 10, 15 years ago.
Sure.
How does that change the dynamic when you're on the road with a book?
One of the things I think that's happened that's pretty interesting, and I wonder what you all think about this, is that I think it might have been partly in COVID, which is an odd silver lining, that being an author and loving books, so being an author and being a reader, got to be this really cool thing. I mean, it's not, it used to be that people would get books at bookstores and go to the library, and it was sort of ordinary. But now people are fascinated by it, fascinated by authors, fascinated by readers, fascinated by writing, fascinated by the whole industry, sort of invested in how it all works. People know the scoop on the inside of publishing and the inside of what authors are doing and what books are coming next, and how you get a blurb and how you do a cover. I mean, that kind of insider scoop on how books work has become really top of mind to people. And that's really great. I mean, the idea that I can go to a bookstore and see people that I met on Blaze, how great is that? That the people whose names I only see in the comments show up at a bookstore, and I think I've only seen your little square face, and on First Chapter Fun or on in the back room. These are people who I know now, who because of social media and because of the glory of Zoom and StreamYard and all the other streaming platforms, we know each other now, and for better or for worse. So that is a joy to me. There's nothing that's ever going to take away the lingering author fear that no one is going to show up at your book event. I had a book event years ago where I was so happy about it. It was so long ago. It was at the Borders in Massachusetts. So how long ago that was. It was at Borders. And I had been told that it was a Friday night at Borders, big deal. It was fantastic. I couldn't wait. The bookseller said, I hope we have enough books because we're certainly going to sell out. And then the Red Sox got in the World Series.
Oops.
And there was not a person in the store. There was not one. I could have bowled in that store, Ellen. Not only was the entire every employee in the store was in the back watching the game. My husband was in the back watching the game. I could have done anything in that store. Or the day that one of my books came out in the winter, and there was such a blizzard that the governor of Massachusetts declared a snow emergency and ordered people to stay home. I've never had a government official order people to stay home from my book launch, but that's what happened. So those are the kinds of things that happen that we were talking earlier about how the world is, that you just can't predict. But people, I've had packed events in this tour. People are coming to get together with their friends, to talk with me, to exchange ideas about books. The book community, this is a super long answer to your perfectly wonderful question. The book community has burgeoned and grown, and we are so connected now. And the idea that I can go anywhere in the country and see people who I've met via you and via the Blaze and via Jenna and via the First Chapter Fun and the back room, it is amazing. It's quite amazing, and I think that's astonishing and incredibly rewarding.
Okay, well, we're ready for questions for Hank. We're talking about All This Could Be Yours, and one of the neat things about being known, I mean, there are very few industries where you can meet the author, meet whoever the quote manufacturer in person, have that person's face zoomed into your living room night or day, take their product to bed, and nobody's going to say, what are you doing? That's a reason why we feel so personal about these books and about the authors. So we have a question from Melanie who says, hi, everybody. Hank, anything odd happened to you when you were on tour?
Melanie, thank you for coming. How long do you have to hear that?
Not that long.
I do have to tell you one quick story, which was that someone, Friends of the Library president, asked me to come to their house at one point in some city, which I forget what was. And as she's driving me to her house, she says, do you like birds? And I said, do I like birds? Like, sure. And she said, okay. And so we drive up to her house, and it's this gorgeous house, beautiful. I mean, right out of a magazine, beautiful, the prettiest house you've ever seen, glorious landscaping, big, big, beautiful. And so I think, okay, well, I wonder why she's asking about birds. Maybe there's birds in the trees. I don't know. She opens the front door, And every single piece of furniture is covered with one of those movers blankets, that's covering all the upholstery. And I thought, oh, there are birds. She means birds in the house. And she says, you'll notice the blankets. That's because our birds are not in cages. They're just loose in the house.
Freeform.
And she says, and by the way, would you like a turkey sandwich? Now I'm starving. It's book tour. I'm starving and I really want a turkey sandwich. I don't want to talk about birds and turkey, but I say, okay. So I go into the kitchen and I sit down at the counter and I hear flappa, 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 flappa. A bird, a white cockatoo, I can tell you, is circling the kitchen and then landed on my head. The bird landed on my head. And I have a picture of it. Charlie, the cockatoo, landed on my head. Only on book tour, you all, as that.
And if you put that in your book of fiction, people would say, no, that doesn't happen in real life, and yet it does.
And yet it does.
All right. Any other questions for Hank? I'm sure we do. Yeah, I know we have viewers coming in. What's the worst question you get asked at a book tour event? Like, what's the one you dread?
That's the one. That's the one I dread. Is what's the worst question you've ever had? Like, I don't know. It's just. The questions that people have I ever been stalked, says Betty Fellows. Welcome, Betty. It's so nice to see you. Yes, absolutely. I've been stalked, not as an author so much, but as a reporter, certainly.
Sure.
As a reporter, as an investigative reporter, all of those 37 Emmys you talked about, those are all secrets that someone didn't want me to tell. And, they were all revealed for the greater good, but there are people who are unhappy with that. And so, I've been stalked and threatened and chased and yelled at and been sued and followed home and gotten mean letters and all those kinds of things. And, as an investigative reporter, people recognize me. And I've had people say, I've had strangers say, oh, I love you. Thank you so much. You changed my life. Strangers have said that. But strangers have also said, I hate you. You're the worst person in the world. I wish you would die because of a story that I've done. So you sort of learn to take it with this thick skin and know that my job was to help the world in general and to make things right and to get some justice and to get some truth and to stand up for the little guy. And people are going to be hurt along the way. The bad guys are going to get hurt along the way. And that's just something I've had to learn to deal with.
Terrific. So this has been a wonderful conversation with Hank. All this could be yours. We'll give you a great insight into what it's like to be on a book tour. You will meet some fabulous characters. There will be mystery. There will be unanswered questions that do get answered eventually, but will keep you up at night while you're reading it. It's a lovely book. I encourage everyone to go out and buy it. And then I also encourage you to tune in when Hank returns to the Blaze as our Crime Time hostess. You can always find out more about the books she's reading and what she's recommending. And you can come back and see me in my regular spot as debut Spotlight hostess. The next book will be October 9th at 2 p.m. when I will be interviewing Stacy Waldman Bass, who is a photographer who has written a luminous memoir about loss and resilience. The book is called Lightkeeper, and I believe it's out this month, but I'll be interviewing her in early October. So till then, keep reading. Thank you so much, Hank.
Thank you. I've loved this, and thank you all for coming. It's been so wonderful for you to host Tessa Calloway, the debut author, here on your show. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Have a good night, everyone.